She's a lesson.
Please don't.
Who is she? Sweetheart, where did that mark come from?
The rich bride tore the maid's little girl's dress in front of everyone, and then the CEO saw the hidden scar. The sound of fabric ripping was small. Too small for a ballroom filled with 200 guests, a string quartet, crystal glasses, and the soft camera clicks of a wedding photographer. But the silence, shh, that followed was enormous. 5-year-old Amara stood frozen at the edge of the marble aisle, her deep brown skin glowing under chandelier light, her little hands clutching a silver butterfly bracelet against her chest. Her yellow dress, the only nice dress her mother owned for her, had been torn at the shoulder by the bride herself. Celeste Archer, dressed in white silk and diamonds, still had a piece of the fabric caught between her manicured fingers. "She doesn't belong in my wedding photos," Celeste said, smiling like cruelty was just another kind of elegance. Amara did not scream. She did not cry loudly. She simply looked down at her torn dress, then up at her mother, Tessa Monroe, the black maid standing near the back wall with a serving tray trembling in her hands. And then CEO Roman Whitaker stepped forward from the altar. He had been calm all morning, controlled, handsome, untouchable. The kind of man who built hotels, bought buildings, and never let the world see him bleed. But when the torn fabric slipped lower on Amara's shoulder, Roman saw the scar. A small crescent-shaped mark just below her collarbone. His face went white. The ring box in his hand dropped to the floor. Because 5 years earlier, Roman's baby daughter had vanished after a hospital fire. The doctors told him she died. The records said there was no mistake. The funeral had been closed casket because there had been almost nothing left to bury. But his daughter had been born with that same crescent scar. And now, at his own wedding, a maid's little girl was standing in front of him, wearing it. Stay with this, because that torn dress would stop a wedding, expose a secret hidden inside hospital records, and prove that the child everyone tried to shame was never supposed to be missing. Hey friends, welcome back. Before we step into this story, tell me where you're watching from tonight. Drop your city or country in the comments, because stories like this remind us that truth does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes through a child's tears, a torn dress, a forgotten bracelet, and one scar the wrong people hoped no one would ever see. If you're new here, subscribe and stay close, because this is the kind of story that begins with humiliation but ends with justice, healing, and a truth no mansion could keep buried forever. Whitaker House stood on a private road outside Charleston, South Carolina, surrounded by ancient oak trees and gardens trimmed so perfectly they looked unreal. The estate was famous in business magazines, wedding blogs, and charity photographs. White columns, marble terraces, a ballroom with gold mirrors and French doors that opened onto a rose garden. People called it romantic. The staff called it cold. Not because the house was ugly, it was beautiful enough to make poor people feel like they had entered a world where even silence was expensive. But there was no warmth in it. Every flower was arranged, every cushion placed, every hallway polished. And still, the house felt like something inside it had stopped breathing years ago. Roman Whitaker knew why. At 38, Roman was one of the most successful hotel CEOs in the country. His company owned luxury resorts from Miami to Napa. His name opened doors. His name opened doors. His signature moved millions. His face appeared in business magazines beside words like empire, discipline, and legacy. But none of that had saved the two people he loved most. 5 years earlier, his wife, Elena, had gone into early labor during a storm. The private hospital where she delivered caught fire that same night because of an electrical fault that should have been repaired months earlier. Elena died from complications before sunrise. Their newborn daughter, Hope, was reported dead in the evacuation chaos. Roman had buried his wife and what he believed was his daughter in the same week. After that, he stopped being alive in the ways people could see. He worked. He acquired. He answered questions. He donated money to hospitals. He built a children's wing in Elena's name. But inside Whitaker House, the nursery doors stayed locked, and Roman never entered the west hallway after dark. Then Celeste Archer came into his life. Celeste was 29, fair-skinned, elegant, and born into the kind of family that had enough old money to look important but not enough left to survive without new money. Her father, Dr. Malcolm Archer, had once been the chief administrator of St. Catherine's Hospital, the same hospital where Roman lost his family. After the fire, he resigned quietly, then rebuilt himself as a medical consultant with excellent manners and very expensive lawyers. Celeste was polished, beautiful, socially perfect. She knew exactly when to touch Roman's arm in public, exactly when to speak softly about healing, exactly when to mention how Elena would have wanted him to move forward. Roman did not love her the way he had loved Elena. But grief makes people tired, and tired people sometimes mistake peace for love. What no one in that mansion knew was that Celeste had not entered Roman's life by accident, and the truth was already inside the house, wearing a yellow dress. Tessa Monroe had been working at Whitaker House for 8 months. She was 31, with deep dark skin, expressive eyes, and a quiet dignity that made some guests uncomfortable because they expected staff to seem smaller. Tessa never did. She was respectful, careful, hardworking, but never broken. Life had pressed hard against her, but it had not taken her posture. Her daughter, Amara, was 5. Amara had deep brown skin, soft curls usually tied with ribbons, and the kind of curious eyes that made adults feel like their secrets had weight. She carried a small silver butterfly bracelet everywhere. It was too large for her little wrist, so Tessa kept it tucked safely in a pocket most days. Amara called it her wing bracelet because her mother had once told her butterflies meant second chances. Tessa had found the bracelet with Amara when she was only a baby. But that part of the story lived in a place Tessa rarely let herself visit. Before she was a maid, Tessa worked nights as a hospital aide at St. Catherine's. She was young then, 26, exhausted, taking nursing classes during the day and working every shift she could get. On the night of the fire, she'd been assigned to laundry transport in the lower wing. She remembered smoke first, then alarms, then people screaming names. In the confusion, Tessa found a newborn baby wrapped in a hospital blanket near the emergency stairwell, coughing weakly, alone, with a melted plastic ID band around one ankle and a tiny silver butterfly bracelet tucked in the blanket. Tessa carried the baby out. She told everyone. Or she tried to. But the hospital was chaos. Patients were being moved, staff were crying, records were destroyed. A doctor told her to place the infant with evacuation triage. Tessa did. When she came back minutes later, the baby was gone. 2 days later, Tessa saw the same baby in a temporary pediatric shelter listed as unidentified. No one claimed her. No one matched her. And when Tessa asked about the bracelet, a nurse warned her to stop asking questions if she wanted to keep working. Tessa did not understand then. Not fully. She only knew a baby had no one. Weeks became months. The child entered emergency foster care. Tessa visited, then she fostered, then she adopted. She named her Amara because it meant grace, mercy, something that survives. She loved her as her own from the first night. But she kept the bracelet, and she kept the memory of smoke, a broken ID band, and a doctor's voice saying, "Stop asking." What Tessa did not know was that the baby she saved had a father who never stopped grieving her. But Amara knew something adults missed. She knew the CEO with sad eyes lived at the west hallway like something had been stolen from him. The first time Roman truly noticed Amara was in the kitchen garden. It was a quiet morning, 2 weeks before the wedding. Tessa had brought Amara because childcare had fallen through again, and Mrs. Ellis, the old housekeeper, had allowed the child to sit near the herb garden with coloring pages and crackers. Roman walked outside during a phone call and stopped when he heard a small voice. "Your flowers are thirsty." He looked down. Amara was kneeling beside a row of white lilies, pointing at the dry soil. Roman ended the call without saying goodbye. "Are they?" he asked. She nodded seriously. "They're trying to be brave, but they're thirsty." For reasons he could not explain, the sentence touched something bruised in him. Tessa hurried over. "Mr. Whitaker, I'm so sorry. She didn't mean to interrupt." "It's fine," Roman said. Amara looked at him with open curiosity. "Are you getting married?" "Yes. Do you want to?" Tessa's hand flew to her chest. "Amara." Roman should have been offended. Instead, he stared at the child for a long moment. No one asked him questions like that. Not Celeste. Not board members. Not friends. Everyone assumed a man like Roman chose everything. He looked toward the ballroom windows where wedding planners were already arranged in white fabric. "I think I'm supposed to," he said quietly. Amara frowned. "That's not yes." Tessa lowered her eyes, embarrassed, but Roman almost smiled. Then Amara reached into her pocket and pulled out the silver butterfly bracelet. "When I'm scared, I hold this. Mommy says it means I got another chance." Roman's breath changed. He stared at the bracelet. For 1 second, he was no longer in the garden. He was in a hospital room 5 years earlier, watching Elena laugh weakly as he fastened a tiny silver butterfly bracelet around their newborn daughter's wrist. "For hope," Elena had whispered. "Because she came early, but she came fighting." Roman blinked hard. "Where did you get that?" he asked. Tessa moved fast. Too fast. "It's just hers," she said, gently taking Amara's hand. "A keepsake." Roman looked at Tessa. Something passed between them. Fear from her. Recognition from him, but not enough. Not yet. Celeste noticed the change that afternoon. She found Roman standing alone in the garden, staring at the lilies like they'd accused him of something. When she asked what was wrong, he said nothing, but his eyes followed Tessa and Amara when they crossed the terrace. Celeste's smile tightened. Later that day, she cornered Tessa in the linen room. Your daughter is getting too comfortable here, Celeste said. Tessa folded a towel slowly. She stays where Mrs. Ellis tells her to stay. Celeste stepped closer. Her perfume was expensive and sharp. Children like yours start by wandering, then touching, then pretending they belong. Tessa's jaw tightened. She's 5, and old enough to learn boundaries. Tessa said nothing because women with bills learn which words cost too much. Celeste's eyes dropped to the pocket of Tessa's apron. The bracelet, she said. Where did it come from? Tessa froze. Celeste smiled. Don't look so frightened. I simply noticed it. It belongs to my daughter. Does it? Tessa looked up then. Celeste's face was calm, but something behind her eyes was not. It was panic, hidden under diamonds, and that was the moment Tessa understood. Celeste knew something. That evening, Tessa opened the small tin box she kept under her bed in the staff cottage. Inside were documents from Amara's adoption, the melted hospital band sealed in a plastic bag, a folded photograph from the pediatric shelter, and the silver bracelet. She had spent years telling herself Amara's beginning did not matter as much as the love that followed. But the past had walked into the garden and looked at her through Roman Whitaker's eyes. Amara sat beside her, swinging her legs. Mommy, why did the bride look scared of my bracelet? Tessa closed the box. Because some people are scared of the truth, baby. Amara thought about this. Is the truth mean? No, Tessa whispered, but it can make mean people nervous. 3 days before the wedding, Celeste's cruelty stopped being subtle. She entered the staff's sitting room where Amara was coloring butterflies on a paper napkin. Tessa was upstairs preparing guest rooms. Mrs. Ellis had stepped away for less than 2 minutes. Celeste looked at the drawing. Still with the butterflies, she said. Amara hugged her crayon box. They're nice. Celeste crouched in front of her. Listen to me carefully. On my wedding day, you will stay out of sight. No bracelet, no yellow dress, no yellow dress, no looking at Roman with those strange eyes. Amara blinked. My eyes aren't strange. Celeste's smile vanished. They are when they make people remember things. Amara did not understand the sentence, but she understood the coldness in it. She began to stand. Celeste grabbed her wrist. Tell your mother if she brings that bracelet anywhere near my wedding, she'll lose everything. Amara's eyes filled with tears. When Tessa returned, she found her daughter silent, clutching a torn butterfly drawing. What happened? Amara whispered. The bride said my eyes remember things. Tessa felt the room tilt. But no one in that mansion knew what the child had seen. And no one knew that the bride's fear was about to become louder than the wedding music. The wedding morning arrived soft and golden. White roses covered the ballroom. Silk ribbons wrapped every chair. Photographers moved like shadows through the estate, capturing shoes, flowers, rings, champagne, smiles. Everything was perfect in the way expensive events are perfect when dozens of underpaid people are carrying the stress behind the walls. Tessa had begged Mrs. Ellis to let her work in the kitchen only, but Celeste had requested her personally for bridal service. I want consistency, Celeste said. Tessa knew what she meant. I want you close enough to control. Amara was supposed to stay in the staff cottage with Mrs. Ellis's niece, but the niece got sick that morning. Tessa had no choice. She brought Amara in the yellow dress she had ironed at dawn, with little white shoes and her curls tied back. The silver butterfly bracelet stayed in Tessa's apron pocket. Stay in the staff room, Tessa whispered. No ballroom. No hallways. Amara nodded. No butterflies either? Tessa swallowed. Not today. For almost an hour, Amara obeyed. Then she heard Celeste shouting, not loudly enough for guests to hear. Just enough for a child near the bridal hallway. I told you to get rid of the hospital file, Celeste snapped into her phone. If Roman sees that bracelet and the scar, my father goes to prison. Amara stood very still. My father did what he had to do after the fire, Celeste continued. The baby was supposed to stay gone. The baby. Amara did not know why those words made her stomach hurt. She only knew they sounded like Mommy's quiet crying. She stepped back, hit a small table, and knocked over a glass vase. Celeste turned. Their eyes met. For one breath, Celeste looked terrified. Then she became the bride again. Beautiful. Furious. Untouchable. What did you hear? Amara clutched the edge of her yellow dress. I want Mommy. Celeste crossed the hallway, grabbed her arm, and pulled her toward the ballroom entrance. Then let's find her. The ceremony had just begun. Guests were rising. The quartet was playing. Guests were rising. The quartet was playing. Roman stood at the altar in a black tuxedo, face composed, hands folded in front of him like a man preparing to survive his own life. Tessa stood near the back with a tray, searching the room for her daughter. Then Celeste appeared at the side entrance, dragging Amara by the wrist. Tessa set the tray down so fast a glass tipped over. "Let go of her," she whispered. Celeste smiled for the guests now watching. "Your daughter was sneaking around the bridal hallway." "She was told to stay in the staff room," Tessa said, voice shaking. "I'm sorry." Celeste lifted her chin. "I'm sorry." Celeste lifted her chin. "Sorry is not enough. This is my wedding. I will not have a maid's child ruining it." A murmur moved through the ballroom. Roman stepped down from the altar. "Celeste." But Celeste had gone too far to stop. "She came dressed like she was invited," Celeste said, gripping the shoulder of Amara's yellow dress. "Look at this, playing guest, playing princess." Amara whispered, "Please don't." Tessa moved forward. "Please." "She's a child." Celeste's smile sharpened. "She's a lesson." Then she yanked the fabric at Amara's shoulder. The dress tore. A thin, ripping sound cut through the ballroom. Amara stumbled back, one hand flying to cover her shoulder. The torn yellow fabric hung loose, exposing the small crescent-shaped scar below her collarbone. The room went still. Tessa rushed to cover her daughter, but Roman was already staring. Not at the dress, at the scar. His face drained of color so completely that Mrs. Ellis reached for the nearest chair. Roman took one step closer. "Who is she?" he whispered. Tessa froze. Celeste laughed too quickly. "Roman, don't be dramatic. It's just a scar." But Roman did not look at her. He lowered himself slowly to one knee in front of Amara, careful not to touch her, careful not to frighten her. "Sweetheart," he said, voice trembling in a way no one had ever heard from him. "How did you get that mark?" Amara looked at her mother. Tessa's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know," Amara whispered. "Mommy says I came through fire." The words broke something open. Roman looked at Tessa. "What does that mean?" Tessa's lips parted, but no sound came. Celeste stepped between them. Celeste stepped between them. "This is ridiculous. She works for you. She probably researched your past. People like her know how to manipulate grief." Tessa flinched. Roman rose slowly. "Move." Celeste blinked. "Excuse me." "Move away from the child." The ballroom became silent enough to hear the candles flicker. Celeste stepped back, humiliated, but her eyes were no longer controlled. They were afraid. Roman turned to Tessa. "Tell me." Tessa reached into her apron pocket with shaking hands and pulled out the silver butterfly bracelet. The moment Roman saw it, he stopped breathing. He took it from her like it might vanish. On the back, in tiny engraved letters, were two words: Hope Whitaker. A sound moved through the guests. Roman's hand closed around the bracelet. "No," he whispered. Tessa began crying then. Quietly, not dramatically. Not dramatically. Like someone who had been holding back a flood for years and could not hold a door anymore. "I didn't know," she said. "Not at first." "I swear I didn't know. I found her during the hospital fire. She was alone near the emergency stairs. Her ID band was melted. No one claimed her. I asked questions, but people told me to stop. I fostered her. Then I adopted her. I loved her. I loved her. I loved her." Warren looked at Amara. 5 years of grief moved across his face in seconds. The funeral, the empty nursery, the locked door, the butterfly bracelet he thought had burned, the tiny crescent scar the doctor had shown him after Hope was born, from an emergency procedure that helped her breathe. He reached for the altar rail to steady himself. Amara looked at him with wide eyes. "Are you sad?" she asked. Roman let out a broken laugh that was almost a sob. "I think," he whispered, "I've been sad for a very long time." Here is what nobody knew. The night of the St. Catherine's fire, Dr. Malcolm Archer, Celeste's father, had been the hospital administrator responsible for delayed safety repairs. The neonatal wing alarms had failed. Emergency exits had jammed. Records had burned. Several families sued, but the most powerful family affected, Roman Whitaker's, had been given a clean report and a closed story. Wife dead. Daughter dead. No further questions. But Hope had not died. She had been moved twice during evacuation, misidentified, and nearly erased by paperwork that made the hospital look less negligent. By the time anyone noticed the error, the administrators buried it. A living child meant lawsuits, criminal charges, public ruin. So the baby stayed lost. And years later, Celeste discovered the truth in her father's old private files. Instead of telling Roman, she used the knowledge to get close to him. If she married him before the truth surfaced, she believed she could protect her father, protect herself, and control the damage. But she had not planned for a maid who kept the bracelet. She had not planned for a child with the scar. And she had not planned for her own cruelty to expose both. Roman turned to Celeste. Your father knew. Celeste's mouth opened. No words came. Did you? She looked around at the guests, at cameras, at flowers, at the wedding she had designed to make herself untouchable. Roman, she whispered. I was going to tell you after the wedding. The lie was too small for the room. Tessa shook her head. No, you weren't. Celeste snapped toward her. You don't get to speak. Roman's voice cut through the air. She does. Celeste stared at him. He held up the bracelet. How long? Her chin trembled. I found the files 6 months ago. A collective gasp rolled through the ballroom. Roman's eyes filled, but his voice stayed quiet. That made it worse. 6 months, he repeated. You let me grieve my daughter while she was walking through my house. I didn't know how to tell you. You threatened her mother. Celeste shook her head quickly. I was scared. My father made mistakes, but he's still my father. And she is my daughter. The words landed with the force of thunder. Amara pressed closer to Tessa, confused and frightened. Roman softened instantly, kneeling again, not touching, just lowering himself to her height. I'm sorry, he said to Amara. I didn't mean to scare you. Amara looked at the bracelet in his hand. That says hope? He nodded, tears now slipping down his face. That was the name your first mommy gave you. Tessa covered her mouth. Roman looked up at her. And you gave her Amara? Tessa nodded. Because she survived. Roman looked at the child between them, the daughter he had mourned, the daughter Tessa had saved, the daughter Celeste had humiliated in front of everyone. Then Celeste made her final mistake. She is not your daughter just because of her bracelet and some scar, she said. You need tests. Lawyers. Proof. You can't throw away our wedding over a maid story. Roman stood. Mr. Caldwell, Roman's attorney, stepped forward from the front row, already pale. Roman, the hospital archive still exists. If there was a neonatal procedure, there will be surgical notes. The scar placement can be verified and DNA can be done today. Celeste turned on him. Stay out of this. But Mrs. Ellis, the old housekeeper, stepped forward too. There is more, she said. Roman looked at her. Mrs. Ellis held out a sealed envelope. Your late wife's sister sent this 2 years ago. Your father instructed me to file it away. I was wrong to obey. Roman took it with shaking hands. Inside was a copy of a letter from Elena's sister asking why no DNA confirmation had ever been done on the remains, and mentioning that a nurse had once called the family line after the fire claiming a baby girl had survived. The call had been dismissed as a scam. Tessa remembered making that call. No one had called her back. Roman closed his eyes. The truth had not been lost. It had been ignored. Celeste stepped backward as if the room itself had turned against her. Roman removed the wedding ring from his pocket and stared at it for one long second. Then he placed it on the nearest table. There will be no wedding. Celeste's face crumpled. Roman, please, think about what you're doing. I am. You're humiliating me. He looked at Amara's torn dress. You humiliated a child. She was interfering. She was existing. Celeste's voice sharpened with panic. You are choosing them over me. Roman's answer came quietly. You didn't need to know who she was to treat her like a human being. No one spoke after that. Security did not drag Celeste out. Roman was too controlled for spectacle. He simply asked Mrs. Ellis to escort her to the bridal suite to change, and Mr. Caldwell to notify her family that the ceremony was over. Her father would be contacted by attorneys before sunset. Celeste left the ballroom in her perfect white gown, but nothing about her looked perfect anymore. Guests lowered their eyes as she passed, some from shame, some from fear. Most because they had watched a rich woman tear a little girl's dress and had done nothing until the truth made the child important. That was the part Roman would remember, not just Celeste's cruelty. The room's silence. When the ballroom emptied, Tessa sat with Amara in the small library, wrapping a soft shawl around her torn dress. Amara had stopped crying, but she kept touching the exposed scar like it had become something new. Roman stood at the door for a while before knocking. "May I come in?" he asked. Tessa looked up, eyes swollen. "Yes." He entered slowly, holding the butterfly bracelet. "I don't want to take anything from you," he said. "I don't want to take anything from you."